Life is full of surprises, some bitter, some sweet. This is my tale of fear, love, dream, and the broken heart that changed me forever. My name's Pip, and I'm going to tell you my story the blurry way I remember it. I was just a kid back then, living with my sister and her husband Joe. I often spent hours at my parents' graves, tracing their names in the dirt, imagining their faces. Sometimes I thought I saw them, just for a moment, but the visions always faded, leaving me alone with only their names. One windy day, my drawing was whisked away. I ran after it, but the air felt heavier. The marshes ahead darker, colder, stumbling. I froze. A sound chain dragging echoed through the fog. I wasn't alone. From the mist, a figure appeared, ragged, desperate. He grabbed me. His voice was low, threatened me to bring him some food and a file at the night, or he'll hunt me down and slit my throat. His eyes, burning with wild desperation, pierced through me. Barely able to breathe, I turned and ran, terror propelling my feet. The sound of chains fading behind me didn't matter. The fear stayed, clinging to me. That night, I crept into my sister's kitchen, my heart pounding louder than my footsteps. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a scream in the silence. Bread, cheese, a rusted file. I stole them all, my hands trembling with guilt. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. As the first light of dawn broke over the marshes, I carried the stolen bundle back to the graveyard. When I handed it over, his eyes softened. Just for a moment, a glimmer of something human. I ran home, the weight of what I'd done pressing heavily on my chest. My sister's voice echoed faintly in the distance, but all I could hear was his last command, and the unshakable dread that I'd see him again. The next day, I was invited to Miss Havisham's mansion. She was the richest and craziest old lady in Kent, frozen in time, haunted by the shadow of her past. Draped in a tattered wedding dress, sits amidst rotting wedding remains. Her presence is ethereal, yet unsettling. Entering the mansion felt like stepping into another world, a world of mystery and decay. My sister said it was a chance to better myself, but no one explained why I was chosen. I only knew Miss Havisham wanted me there to amuse her. Stepping inside, I felt like a pawn in a game I didn't know how to play. And then I saw her, Stella. At first, I wasn't sure what to make of her. She moved across the room like a queen, her presence so commanding, it felt like the world should bow to her. Her hair was like spun gold, and her eyes, those piercing eyes, seemed to look right through me. A coldness surrounded her, one that felt almost impenetrable. When she spoke, her voice carried a mocking tone, like she was above everything I was. Like I wasn't even worth a second glance. In that moment, I felt smaller than ever before. Miss Havisham's gaze lingered on Estella as she asked, her voice sharp and deliberate. "Do you find her beautiful, Pip?" I answered honestly, though a strange unease gripped me. Her beauty was undeniable, but it left me feeling uncertain, as if it hid something deeper, something cold. Miss Havisham's smile was knowing, almost haunting. She leaned closer, her voice a whisper that felt like a warning. "Love her, Pip, but be prepared, she'll shatter your heart." The words cut through the room, their weight pressing down on me. I didn't understand fully, but I felt the gravity of her promise. Time passed. She grew more beautiful with every passing day, but remained a mystery to me. Beautiful and untouchable. I couldn't understand her, yet I was drawn to her more each day, and I grew more hopelessly devoted. Each moment with her was both a gift and a torment, a bittersweet longing, always out of reach. Stella, standing tall and poised, didn't flinch. Her expression remained unmoved, her cold green eyes locked briefly with mine. Then, with a faint smirk curling her lips, she turned away. And then, she was gone, off to London, to learn, to live, to become something beyond the reach of someone like me. I watched her disappear, like a dream slipping through my fingers, leaving me behind in a world that felt colder without her. I spent my days at the forge like a prisoner of iron and fire, dreaming of something more. I longed for a life far from the smoke and the sweat, a life that could make me worthy of her. Years later, a stranger came to the forge, a man in a fine suit. His eyes scanned everything, yet it felt as though he saw only me. Without a word, he handed me a letter inside an envelope that changed everything. The envelope was heavy, not in weight, but in meaning. Inside, it spoke of an unimaginable fortune, of an education, and of a life I had only dreamed of. It promised transformation, an escape from the soot and fire of the forge to the world of gentlemen. There was no name, no explanation, just the words of a mystery benefactor. Leaving Joe behind felt like shedding a second skin, but the thought of Stella and the life that awaited me in London gave me courage. London. I was seduced by the city's glitter, living a life paved with borrowed silver and silk. An unknown benefactor gave me a fortune. I thought it was Miss Havisham's doing, meant to make me worthy of Stella. But beneath the glamour, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was chasing shadows. It was a gilded cage. Every party felt empty, every smile fake. I thought money would make me worthy of Stella. I was wrong. Years have passed since I left the marshes. In London, I had turned into what I thought she would admire, a gentleman. I never expected to see Stella again, but there she was, standing in the midst of the party, like some unreachable star. My heart pounded, my breath caught in my chest as she noticed me, her gaze cold, yet polite. I stepped closer, words tumbling out before I could stop them. Stella, it's been so long. I've thought of you every day. She looked at me with a quiet, almost detached smile, as if time had turned me into nothing more than a distant memory. And then she spoke, her voice smooth, unreadable. She asked what London had made of me, as though she already knew what I would say. And then with a softness that felt sharper than any cruelty, she reminded me. She had warned me before. She could not love me. She had no heart to give. We spent time together, walking through familiar places, laughing at old memories. And yet every word she spoke, every look she gave, felt like a blade. I was no longer the poor boy from the forge. Yet I was still not enough. My heart had built her a pedestal, and from it she ruled me with indifference. She chose wealth, position and security, a life I could never give her. I had built my dreams on the hope of her love, but dreams are like glass, shatter when dropped. In her I had seen my future. In her rejection I found my reality. Love is cruelest when it pretends to offer hope. My heart was broken like never before. I stood in the shadows unseen as Stella's wedding unfolded before me. Her eyes held no joy, yet she smiled, a smile not meant for me. My chest tightened, but I stayed silent. Love had never been mine to claim, only to fade before me like a dream I could never hold on to, and so I let her go. I've learned to live quiet life. One day the air in the room felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. I stepped inside, and there he was, the man I had once feared in the marshes, now reduced to a shadow of his former self. He had come to see me. Not as the terrified boy I once was, but as the man he had dreamed I could be. And then he told me the truth. It was him, Magwitch. The convict from the marshes. He had given me the fortune, funded my education, and crafted the life I had come to know. All for a boy who had shown him a moment of kindness in his darkest hour. With trembling hands he passed me a box filled with old yellowed papers, and a letter, fragile with age. As I unfolded the letter, my eyes traced words that carried the weight of a lifetime, a truth both humbling and heartbreaking. Magwitch had left me his entire life's wealth, calling me the only family he had ever known. I wanted to turn away, to deny the truth. But how could I? His sacrifice, his lifetime of silent love for me, demanded more than words. He had lived for this moment, and now with nothing left to give, he was giving me everything. In his final days, I saw not a convict, but a man who had given me hope, even when he had none for himself. He had spent his life building a future for me, a future I never deserved, but would honour. His loss was a heavy burden, but his sacrifice, it became my greatest inheritance, a life I vowed to make worthy of his faith in me. I never thought I'd return here, yet something unspoken drew me back, a pull deep in my soul, an ache that refused to fade. The ghosts of my past lingered in the air, woven into the very stones beneath my feet. I had to face them, had to walk through the memories that had shaped me and broken me. Suddenly, a little girl appeared from nowhere chasing a rabbit, with bright eyes and a laugh that carried innocence. Untouched by the weight of the world, she seemed out of place, yet strangely familiar. And then she appeared, as if summoned by fate itself. Stella, changed, yet unmistakable. Life had worn her, softened her, carved something quieter, something deeper into her presence. She stood before me, no longer the untouchable girl I once knew, but a woman who had lived, endured, and survived. Yet in some way more alive than ever. She spoke of her life, of the years that had shaped her, of lessons curved into her soul by pain. She spoke of heartbreak, of mistakes, of her divorce, of wounds that time had turned into quiet wisdom. And then she spoke of hope. Not for herself, but for her daughter, a hope she had never known. And in her eyes, I saw something I had never seen before. Not the guarded coldness of the past, not the unreachable beauty I once worshipped, but peace, a fragile, quiet peace that had taken years to find, and maybe, just maybe, the possibility of us. I thought I'd come back to bury the past, to silence the ghosts that had haunted me for so long, but instead I found something I never expected. Not loss, not regret, but something far greater. Life had taken so much from me. Dreams shattered, innocence stolen, time I could never reclaim. But in return, it had given me something deeper, understanding, forgiveness, and the love I once believed was beyond my reach. Life rarely unfolds the way we imagine. It twists, it breaks us, it takes without mercy. But sometimes, just sometimes, it offers something in return. Not an escape from pain, but a second chance. A chance not to erase the past, but to build something new from its ruins. And now standing here with Stella, I know this is where I belong. Not as the boy who once longed for a different ending, but as a man who has finally found his place, and the love that was never truly lost.